Today's defendant is Legion. With Legion's third and final season finally debuting, it's time to examine David Haller. Now, don't worry, I won't be spoiling anything from the show's third season, especially since I only seen the first episode of season 3. But the real reason why David Haller is on trial here is because of a statement given in an interview from comicbook.com with Legion showrunner Noah Hawley. In the interview, Hawley explained that David Haller started off in the hospital at his lowest point, but then met a girl and became happy. And so he posed the question, where does the story go from here? And as Noah Hawley put it, we could either go back to a happy place, or he can go off the bottom of the map. And this is where the trial comes in. Now, I will be dealing specifically with the show Legion here, and not so much the comics, as the official question is David Haller a hero or a villain, and where should his story end? Back at the happy place, or off the bottom of the map? Let's start by looking at the show over the course of the first 2 seasons. In the beginning, Haller is convinced that he is mentally ill, but then he learns of the Shadow King and that he has been tucked away in his mind ever since he was a baby. Once purged of the Shadow King, and after learning that he does indeed have mental powers, he believes that all of his mental woes are just a combination of lies that were fed to him and the effects of his little mental stowaway. However, we, the audience, also learn something about him too. Something that was first hinted at towards the end of the first season and was explored even more during the second, and that's the idea that Legion actually is one very disturbed individual. Sure, the hospital may be incorrect in their diagnosis of him, and the Shadow King may be very real, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Haller isn't still mentally unstable. And might I point out that this is where the real fun of the show is for me. As the series continues, it seems to be taking its audience along for a roller coaster ride filled with ups and downs, but entirely in the dark, making it hard to see where things are really going until it finally hits you. But back to David Haller, as he's shown numerous signs of intense aggression and almost seems to be enjoying destroying others. Now, yes, he has been targeting mostly those who wish to do harm to either him or the people he cares about, which is how he rationalizes his behavior. And it's also how we, the audience, can do so too. But as brought up in the show, violence to protect yourself and your friends to do harm is understandable to a degree, but enjoying it, that's a completely different story. However, in contrast to that, let's not forget about how under attack Haller was since the very beginning of the show. Aside from his mental roommate, Haller has also been under fire from Division 3, who he eventually had to work with along with his friends from Summerland. And speaking of Summerland, they also became his enemies at the end of Season 2, and of course, having the Shadow King renting out room in your head must take a toll on you after doing so for so long. But in opposition to that, let's not forget that an alternate version of himself told him that he was a bad person, and let's also remember that he mentally manipulated his girlfriend Sid and was, also prophesized to end the world. But alright, enough deliberation. Time for a verdict. I find the defendant David Haller guilty. Now, I have to say that I cannot stress enough that the ambiguous nature of the show is one of the main reasons why I just love it so much. However, I think when it all comes down to it, this is where the whole story is eventually going. While I said that I won't be referencing the comics all that much, allow me to just quickly point out that the anti-hero Legion does have multiple personalities in the comic books, so I do think that there is still the possibility that maybe some of his identities are villains while the others are heroes, resulting in his inconsistent moral state. And there's also the chance that all of them are villains except for his main personality, who is the victim and is the only hero out of the lot. Also, I think I should point out that some of what Haller is being accused of isn't based off of actual evidence. He's being judged by a look on his face, or because some vision that claims to be from the future is saying that he will commit some serious crimes. Good luck getting a case based off of that alone to stick, is all I'm saying. However, that isn't the only evidence to consider here, as I do think that his time with the Shadow King along with his meds have caused him to become seriously unhinged. And I do think that he's always had multiple personalities throughout the course of the show, possibly throughout his entire life. I also wouldn't be surprised if the show ends with it being a big final confrontation between himself and his true enemy, himself. Which would mean that the show would probably end with him making the ultimate sacrifice in order to save the entire world. And by doing so, he would ultimately end up a hero. But what do you think? Is he good, is he bad, or does it depend on which personality you ask? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, as well as letting me know who you'd like to see in the next Judge a Character. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, Dave knows.